Good evening, it's Lindy. I'm just checking my mic.
Lindy, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We will be unmuting the mics. Sorry. We will be conducting tonight's meeting in person as well as in virtual setting using Zoom. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Chair Lyons will begin the meeting momentarily.
Turn my microphone on. It is now 6 o'clock. I'll call to order the November 16, 2022 City of Lincoln Regular Planning Commission meeting. Secretary, we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Cross. Commissioner Gilbert.
Here.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
Here.
Commissioner McKinney.
Here.
Chair Lyons.
Present. I was going to say.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah, it's fine.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here. It seemed like not enough. Good. All right. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Johnson tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda modifications. Do we have any agenda modification requests this evening from anyone on the commission? Seeing none. Item 5 is citizens addressing the commission. This is a time for citizens to address the commission on anything that is not on the agenda. Anything that is on the agenda can be addressed during the time when that is appropriate. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission on something not on the agenda?
Chair, I see no hands raised on Zoom, and I did not receive any cards before the meeting.
Thank you very much. Item 6, disclosure of ex parte communication. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any communication to disclose?
Yes, I had a brief conversation with Village One people.
Just some email exchanges with Tony Fragi, Village One.
Kelly?
I have none to report.
I had an email exchange with Tony Frazier.
Nothing to report.
I also had just a brief email exchange saying I didn't really have any questions. Thank you. Item 7 is the consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine business and will be enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items unless a request to remove an item for separate action is received. There is only one item on the agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda, or does anyone wish to pull something from the consent?
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Can we do this voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's carried. No, anyone opposed?
No.
I saw everyone's mouth move, but you're right. I have to get that on the record. All right, item 8, public hearings. Item 8A is Carefield Assisted Living Time Extension. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Efrain Sanchez, Senior Planner with Community Development Department. The project we have before you is a one-year time extension request for the approved Carefield Assisted Living project submitted by Carefield Solano LLC. A little bit of context, the project was originally approved on July 15, 2020. The Planning Commission approved the Carefield Living project, which included a conditional use permit and specific development plan development permit design review for the construction of 319,410 square feet of independent living and assisted living memory care facility with associated improvements on a 14.72 acre site. The site is vacant and it's zoned commercial within the main village of the 12 Bridges area. On July 8, 2022, the applicant submitted a time extension for the Carefield Assisted Living project in order to complete the construction drawings of the site, accommodate the future review of construction drawings, and satisfaction of the conditions of approval. The time extension application was submitted a week prior to its original expiration of July 15, 2022. According to condition of approval number 3, the Planning Commission may grant one-year extension of time. Approval of this extension would extend the expiration of the entitlement to November 16, 2023. As you can see here on the site plan to the left is the approved site plan. To the west, indicated here, to the west is the independent living. And then on the east side is the assisted living / memory care. So that's what this extension is for the actual assisted living / memory care. This site here is the building, it's proposed to be 108,230 square feet in size. And then this is just an elevation of what the project would look like. Findings, the Lincoln zoning ordinance subsection 18.67060, expiration of approvals, allows for time extensions for a design review application. In addition, condition of approval 3 grants authority to the Planning Commission to make the final determination to either approve or deny the one-year extension of time. The extension of time will provide the necessary time for the applicant to complete construction drawings, submit those drawings to Community Development Department for review, and effectively activate the entitlement. Circumstances beyond the applicant's control, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, has produced a massive impact on the senior living industry in the United States. The approved Carefield Assisted Living project remains consistent with the applicable standards of the general plan, zoning ordinance, and complies with CEQA guidelines section 15164, as there is no substantial evidence requiring the preparation of a subsequent negative declaration or an addendum, given the project is a time extension to the previously approved Carefield Assisted Living project. Recommendation, staff recommends the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing, consider the information contained in the staff report and testimony of the public, and adopt a resolution to determining that the project complies with CEQA guidelines section 15164, as there is no substantial evidence requiring the preparation of a subsequent negative declaration or an addendum to the existing Carefield Living addendum to a subsequent EIR for the 12 Bridges specific plan, State Clearinghouse number 970220074, adopted by the Planning Commission on July 15, 2020. Approving a one-year time extension for the approved Carefield Assisted Living project to November 16, 2023. At this point, I will turn it over to the Planning Commission in case you guys have any questions for me, for staff, or the project applicant.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I'll start on this end. Peter, anything? Michelle? Nothing? Dan?
No, sir.
Eric?
I do. Just maybe more of a policy question, mostly for my education. I'm just curious, so we can, grant time extensions. Just on tonight's agenda, I noticed there's different years for granting extensions. So I'm just curious how that works. Is it up to the applicant to decide how much time they need? Or the city is just something else driving that?
Yeah.
And it's mostly just for education to know.
Yeah, of course. So this one in particular is a little bit special because it is for an extension of the actual entitlement versus the other ones are an extension of the actual map. So with the map, there's actual statutory extensions that can be applied. For example, with maps, there's 6-year time extensions that could be done for discretionary on a discretionary basis. So then basically, that's governed by state law, the Subdivision Map Act, and also the city's subdivision ordinance that specify how length-wise of like how much it can be extended for the maps. But this one in particular, the project we have before you is the Carefield Assisted Living. That one is, it's specifically laid out in the conditions of approval that they can be granted 1-year extension. So it's not like we're extending the map, we're extending the actual entitlement of the design review.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's kind of what enables it to use the different time limits. Okay,
Yeah, that's,
okay. And then I guess just another question maybe for the applicant or whoever, but so we're extending a year. So does that mean like there's a plan to start moving on it from the applicant within the year timeframe, or are we expecting to be doing this again?
so essentially, the applicant submitted the request to provide themselves more time to actually finish the construction drawings, get those into community development for review, engineering, and basically start construction. The applicant, Steve Barkless, might be on the line. Oh, okay. I'll let him answer.
You want to address the question?
Sure. Good evening. My name is David Berry. I'm with Eubora Engineering and Planning, and I have the privilege of representing the Carefield Assisted Living Project. I thought I might give a little bit additional context. So when the commission approved this project in 2020, it was approved to be allowed to be developed in phases, with the westerly half of the campus being the independent living and the easterly half being the assisted living memory care. The independent living plans have been prepared and have been submitted and are currently being reviewed by City now. So they're hoping to pull their permits very quickly. We are currently working on the plans and hope to submit the permit for permit applications, the easterly portion of the project for the memory care. So it's our anticipation that both sides will be permitted. Be happy to answer any other questions that the commission might have.
Thank you. No, that answered my question.
I had a similar question, so thank you for that. Thank you for responding. I think that answers the questions at this stage, so I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on item 8A?
Chair, I did not receive any cards. There are no hands raised in Zoom.
And there's none in the room. All right, then we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for any further discussion, and if not, a motion.
I move adoption of the request.
I'll second.
So let me make sure I read this properly. We are approving resolution 2022- voting on approving resolution 2022-31, which is a time extension of the approved specific development plan, development permit, and design review and approving one-year time extension for the approved Carefield Assisted Living Project to November 16, 2023. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Lyons.
Yes. All right, that brings us to item 8B, Joyner Ranch East time extension. Staff report, please.
Hi again, Planning Commissioners. Efren Sanchez, Senior Planner with Community Development Department. The project we have before you is a 6-year time extension request of the approved tentative subdivision map, Joyner Ranch East, submitted by Joyner Limited Partnership and Morton Patello, Inc. A little bit of context, on April 13, 2021, the City Council approved the Joyner Ranch East tentative subdivision map project under Resolution 2021-62 for the development of 199 single-family residential lots, open space corridor, and other subdivision improvements. On September 12, 2022, the applicant submitted their first discretionary time extension for the Joyner Ranch East tentative subdivision map project in order to accommodate the future review of the improvement plans, satisfaction of the conditions of approval, and recordation of the final map. The project site is located on the southeast corner of Joyner Parkway and Nicholas Road. The project site is approximately 25.66 acres in size. The property is zoned planned development, medium density residential, and open space within the Joyner Ranch General Development Plan area. The PD MDR zone allows for single family lots as small as 2,900 square feet when compared to the minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet in the R1 zone. The applicant is proposing to construct the medium-density detached single-family residential product type on lots ranging from 2,900 square feet to 3,600 square feet. Findings. The Lincoln Municipal Code Section 17.16190 Terms of Approval Extensions allows for time extensions on tentative subdivision maps. The applicant has shown a sustained effort to meet the requirements of the tentative subdivision map by anticipating the time needed to subsequently process the recording of the final map. According to the applicant, the extension of time will provide additional time for the preparation of improvement plans and final subdivision map, along with economic changes in the current economy. Community Development Department staff and the project applicant team met to discuss the original request of 6 years. After careful consideration, both staff and the applicant team agreed to a 4-year time extension compromise. If 4 years is not enough, the applicant can come back and request the additional 2 years closer to the time of expiration. The approved map remains consistent with the applicable standards of the general plan, the zoning ordinance, and subdivision ordinance. Staff did receive one public comment in support of the extension, but also that same comment made comment on topics that were previously analyzed under the original map approval and the initial study mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project. Recommendation, staff recommends that the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing and consider the information and findings in the staff report, as well as public testimonies, and recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution determining that the project is exempt from CEQA under Section 15061 B3, common sense exemption of the CEQA guidelines, because there's no possibility the time extension will have a significant effect on the environment, and approval of a 4-year time extension for the approved Joyner Ranch East tentative subdivision map. At this point, I'll turn it back to the Planning Commission. If you have any questions, I'm available, and also the applicants available via Zoom.
Okay, let's reverse the order. Commissioner Johnson, do you have any questions?
I was curious about the 6 versus 4, but yeah, thanks for explaining that.
Same question. Commissioner Cross.
Yeah, they asked for a 6-year time extension, then in the next one, you asked for 4 years. But if at the end of 4 years, you don't have enough, you can ask for 2 more. Why wouldn't you just ask for 6 right now? And if you can do it in 4, do it in 4. I mean, what's the purpose of asking for 6 and changing it to 4 with the reservation of going to 6? I don't understand. Why wouldn't we just approve 6 years? If they can do it in 4, they can do it in 4.
Well, he explained it, but staff.
Well,
didn't-
he
he didn't
explained that
explain
they
it to
came to a
me.
compromise, but he didn't explain why.
He
I think that's
explained
the
that, he
question.
explained that there was a change. I don't understand why there was a change.
It's kind of like, okay, so when you're doing the improvements, you want to like first get your, do the improvements, meet your conditions of approval. And then as you go through that process, you may or may not need extensions. And then there's also the possibility that there could be some statutory exemptions that come along that can be applied to this project. So at that point, you can kind of like save yourself that 2-year credit to then later come back in case you need more time, additional time, you can, come back for the additional 2 years. There was sort of like this, with the SB 9, it's a new state law that came into play that kind of like revised the way that because the whole reason the state is trying to increase the housing production in California, they kind of made it possible to go ahead and get the first 24 months like right off the bat and then get additional 48 months, but not to exceed 6 years. So that's kind of, the reason we talked about this. This is the first, because since the change to the subdivision ordinance, this was the first application we received requesting 6 years. But at the end of the day, we did talk with the applicant and we agreed on 4 years.
If I may add also, this is a discretionary time extension request. So even though staff had worked it out with the applicants regarding the 4 years being recommended by staff, the commission may see otherwise. Just want to let you know that the nature of this request is a discretionary time extension. So we scrutinized and reviewed the request. We met with the applicant, discussed our concerns about the timing. 4 years was eventually reached upon. They can get 2 more years thereafter if they're not able to record the map if the 4 years is approved. But at the end of the day, the commission may see otherwise. They can consider 6 years, but our recommendation based on coordination with internally with staff, coordination with the applicant, 4 years is appropriate, sufficient.
I would just add that it gives the city some control in keeping the applicant kind of on track. And as Efren mentioned, in case things change with fees or standards, that we could update the map accordingly. But your question is valid. We debated the merits of just going the full 6 or retaining that extra 2-year buffer just to have that control in case things change. Exactly.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nothing else from you? Commissioner McKinney, Commissioner Hutchinson, Commissioner Gilbert.
I'd like to,
Chair, I'm sorry, excuse me. Chad Roberts online, who represents part of the project, is raising his hand. So not necessarily a public comment, but he might want to add something.
Okay, let's hear from the commissioners first and
Okay.
then I can open that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gilbert, can you move the microphone closer?
permission of the chair, I'll direct the question to our city attorney. When I was on the city council, we adopted a very complex, financially very much more advantageous program where people that build in our community must make certain contributions. And that was based on the fact that several factors. We did not have an inflation factor built in, and we have found that things that were approved in the past really are not paying their fair share to support city services. So here we're sitting, being asked for a 4-year extension. If in their wisdom, our city council, 2 years hence, 3 years hence, decides that they need to sharpen up that program and maybe change it, what would be the application of that new decision and new rules on, say, this project?
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. So my understanding, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but that this project will be required to annex into the CFDs, both CFDs, both for public services and maintenance. And so the way the CFD program works is that we expect development to carry its own weight when it comes to maintenance, police services, fire services. And that CFD is analyzed per project based on the impact that that project will have on those public type services. So ultimately, at some point in time, when this project is ready to go and start pulling permits, before they can do that, they're going to have to annex into the CFD, which is a community facilities district, to be distinguished from our landscape and lighting districts and our BADs and all of that kind of thing. So they're absolutely, well, they're still going to have to pay their PFE fees. Those are separate and apart from the community facilities district, but they will ultimately be required to annex into those.
So in essence, then, in answer to what I questioned, we're not giving up anything in the way of future needs in the next 4 years that might develop and dictate to us to charge different fees than we are charging today.
No, correct. So the fees that are going to be in place now have escalations in them. And so they will be charged whatever the appropriate fee is at the time that they come online, and that will be based on the fees that are adopted by City Council with the applicable index.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to hear from the applicant who's online.
Mr. Roberts, please unmute your mic and you can speak.
Good evening, Chair Lyons. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Chair Lyons, members of the Planning Commission, this is Chad Roberts on behalf of the applicant. Quickly, just want to thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. I do want to extend our sincere gratitude to your staff, to your city attorney for getting this item before you this evening. And of course, an additional thank you to Efren for his presentation. I just wanted to chime in on the conversation of the 6 versus 4 years. We did request 6 years initially. We know that your staff was eager to preserve the city's flexibility with respect to the final 2 years of discretionary extensions. We know they thought long and hard about that, and we ultimately agreed with their recommendation and respected their desire to drop down from 6 to 4 years. So I did want to share that with you and let you know we do support the 4 years. If you have any questions, I'm here and happy to answer them. If not, we'd respectfully request you move staff's recommendation and recommend approval to the City Council.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing the applicant's side of an agreement like that. So thank you very much. Any questions for him from the commission? No? All right. I think that'll bring us to our public hearing. I'll open a public hearing on item 8B. Is there any cards turned in for that?
There are no cards submitted. However, I do have some hands raised online.
Are there any in the room? Seeing none, let's go for the online ones.
Ms. Flowers Williams, I am allowing you to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Susie Flowers Williams. I reside over at 1805 6th Street, which is near the proposed development. And I want to apologize. It seems I'm a little bit late coming into the game. It sounds like this development has already been approved in April of 2021, if that's correct. I do have a few concerns I would like to have recorded into the public hearing. And I'm speaking a little bit fast for my time frame, but please holler out if you have any questions. I do have concerns. That area is immediately adjacent to Joyner Park. I think 199 homes zoned for that area is astronomical, to be honest with you. We've lived in our home. I'm a lifelong Lincoln resident, and we purchased our home about 30 years ago here on 6th Street, which is just one block over from this proposed development. At one point, I was notified that we may be in a flood zone. So that is a concern of mine. I had many conversations with FEMA. It was going to raise our insurance quite significantly if we were in a floodplain. So they determined at that point, and this has been a few years back, that indeed we were not considered in a floodplain. So I have that same concern today with this development that if the 199 homes go in that area, that it may cause my home to be in a flood zone. And again, that would be increasing my insurance. So I want you guys to take that in consideration. Also, the creek area that runs just, it would be, I guess, south of that project. It was recently cleared out, but many of the debris and the brush have again grown in that area. So I think that should be a concern. Another concern I have is the lumber mill that's there, that's operated in Lincoln for many, many years. That is directly across from this development. I do not like to see when new people move into Lincoln and then all of a sudden they're going to be complaining about something that has been part of our Lincoln community for many, many years. So I want that noted as well. I do have also some concern about traffic. We have 2 schools within that route on Joyner Parkway, one being Creekside Oaks Elementary School. The other is Foskett Ranch. There's a lot of traffic in the morning, but that's a high traffic area anyways. I'm looking at the time constraint here, but I also want to bring up a water issue. We know that California is in a drought. Water is a concern of mine. I also have a concern that parking is a concern. That is the park is utilized daily, but especially on the weekends. So parking is a concern of mine. And then I had a couple of questions, and that one of those was, I'm just concerned that there was not an environmental impact report done for this project. It sounds like there was a mitigated declaration, excuse me. And I'm hoping that somebody can ask why there wasn't an EIR done. And then if the project is going to be delayed, I appreciate Councilmember Gilbert's comments about, how will that 4 to 6 years from now, how will that play if the project is delayed? I hope the project's delayed and reconsidered, but I do have concerns about, will there be?
We got your questions, and I think you're repeating now and your time is up. So thank you very much. I appreciate your comments, and we'll address some of those in a minute. Thank you. Another one online?
Yes. Caller with the last 4 digits of the phone number of 8843. I will allow you to speak. Please unmute if you have a mute on your phone.
Not getting any response from caller 8843.
Yeah.
Well, we tried. Sorry, the tech doesn't work as well as we would like sometimes.
There are no other
control over.
Yeah. Yes, there are no other hands on Zoom.
No other hands on Zoom. I'll come back to the room. Any other hands in the room? And if you're behind the podium from me, raise it high because I can't see you. All right. We will end the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Would the staff address the questions? I think all of the questions, well, most, maybe not all, but most of the questions would have been addressed in the EIR or the mitigated negative declaration that was voted on back in April of last year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So there was an initial study, mitigated neg deck, prepared for this project. in April of 2020, or the date that we identified. And with that, all the potential impacts of the project were mitigated and then also moved forward as conditions of approval to try to like mitigate the impacts to the environment.
So can you explain, just for the benefit of the public, what the mitigations are and how that process works and why it would be a mitigated neg deck rather than a full EIR? What are the deciding factors of that?
I just want to really clarify. That was testimony given. That is not an issue that's before the planning commission this evening.
I just
The
wanna
issue before
educate
the
public.
issue before the planning commission is whether you're going to grant a discretionary extension. This isn't a reopening of a discussion on the EIR or the appropriateness of the project or traffic or its proximity to Sierra Pacific. And so I would caution the planning commission to really focus on what is the issue before you this evening.
That's not necessarily a Q&A either. They just express their opinions.
While true, I do like to educate the public on how the process works. Now, all of these things were part of the hearing the first time when it was approved, and you're absolutely right. It is already approved. This is not a matter of whether it's going to be approved or not. So I received that. Any further questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Cross's questions earlier. I just want to, following along those lines. So just for my education too. So at the end of this 4-year extension, if it's granted, is the applicant able to come forward and do another 2 years or 4 years or kind of go all over again? So it could kind of in perpetuity just kind of continue extending.
Today, they would have another 2 years. If the state of California comes in and changes the law and we change our ordinance, then things change.
Okay.
But today, if things stay all the same, they have 4 years and then could request an additional 2. I can't
Yeah.
predict Sacramento.
No, right? That's hard to do. Okay, so then let's say like 4 years come and they extend another 2 years. What happens if nothing happens in that 2 years or the full 6? Does it just?
It
go away?
expires.
Okay.
They lose their entitlement.
And then it just goes through the whole process again?
They would have to start all over again.
Okay.
Start from zero.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious on that. Thanks.
Commissioner Cross, any questions, comments?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, any on this? Okay. I hear Dan wants to make a motion. So this will be,
Chair Lyons,
Yes.
I do apologize. Secretary speaking here. We did receive a comment letter, which I did provide to all commissioners before the meeting, but I just wanted it publicly known. So
yeah,
it will
that
be
as
part,
thank you. That needs to
it
be
will
read
be
in,
part of the
not read
minutes.
in, but included as part of the record.
it's the minutes. Thank you.
Right.
So this will be Resolution 2022-32, recommending the City Council approve a 4-year extension to this tentative subdivision map for the Joyner Ranch East tentative subdivision map project.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please. Dan did the motion and Peter did the second.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Chair Lyons.
Yes. All right, that finishes item 8B. Let's go to item 8C, East 10th Street time extension. Another time extension.
Hi,
Staff
Mel.
report.
Yeah, Mel Pavlinas. I want to introduce our new staff, Associate Planner Dawn Becker. She'll be presenting the item before you, which is the time extension. Anyway, Dawn is at the podium. Welcome, Dawn.
Welcome.
Good evening, Planning Commission. As introduced, my name is Dawn Becker. I am your new Associate Planner with the City of Lincoln. The project that you have before you is a request for a 2-year extension of time to the East 10th Street tentative subdivision map. The subdivision, or sorry, the subject property is 2.4 acres in size and was approved to be split into 10 single-family lots with a detached single-family type of product that will be constructed. This map was originally approved in April of 2011. Its life has extended through various different automatic and discretionary approvals. The latest approval occurred recently in April of 2021 due to the COVID pandemic. It extended the life of the map to October 12th of 2022. The applicant, who is Interwest Homes out of Yuba City, Mr. Kenny Long, submitted a extension of time request on October the 11th to extend the map for an additional 2 years, which is now allowed via the granting of SB 9 and with our adopted city ordinance. Here's the map. It's 10 acres in size. I'm sorry, 2.4 acres in size. You'll have to forgive me. I'm nervous. I haven't done this in a long time.
We won't
2.4
bite
acres
you.
in size and 10 single family lots. They range in size from 6,500 to 9,306 square feet. As discussed, the map has been extended through several extensions. There was a extension that was done in 2019. I'm sorry, via resolution 2019-163. When that extension of time was done, there was condition number 38 that was modified, similar as discussed in the extension presented just before this. The applicant was required to annex into the city's maintenance service and public services CFD. So if you had any concerns regarding that, that's been addressed. It should be noted the applicant does have improvement plans in with the city and is close to recordation. And pursuant to the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act and the environmental guidelines of the City of Lincoln, exempt from environmental review pursuant guidelines 15332 infill projects. This pertains to infill development due to the fact the zoning and general plan designations will remain unchanged. Sites within city limits, less than 5 acres, and will be adequately served by required utilities and public services. It's staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission approve this request of extension of time for the 2-year period of time. This will be the last extension of time that this applicant can request for this map under current state law. And as stated, they're close to recordation. We would request that you approve it and on to the City Council. At this point, I will close my presentation and open to you if you have any questions of me or the applicant.
Okay, do any commissioners have any questions for staff at this stage? Commissioner Gilbert, yes.
Not a question, but I want to thank you. You did very well for your first time. It's very, very common to be nervous, but that makes you sharper. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been 6 years since I've done this, so I'm ready.
Good, good.
So I want to also echo that comment. Dawn also shared with me before we got started this evening that she was especially nervous because her children are at home watching on TV.
Oh, that's probably more pressure.
So the
than we
pressure's
are.
on.
For teenagers. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. Any further comment on this side? Nothing? Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, so you answered one of my questions was, how much how many more extensions they're allowed. So I just want to clarify. So if we grant 2 years and they don't do anything in these next 2 years, it just starts all over again?
Correct. Under current state law, they have a remaining 24 months to wrap up and record their map. And if they don't meet that in that time frame, their entitlement will expire unless there is further law that is passed that will allow them to apply for more time.
Okay. So I assume they're motivated to get it done. I'm just curious if the applicants here or online, if they'd like to comment on anything.
I know that I've personally spoken with the applicant and they're very excited to get this project moving.
Staff Lindy Childers has her hand raised online.
Good evening, Lindy Childers, Engineering Manager of Development Engineering. I wanted to let you know the status of construction. The project is under construction right now. So they're highly motivated to finish and they have just a couple of steps left they've actually already annexed into the CFDs. So it's a very minor thing that they have to wrap up in order to have staff schedule their final map for city council. So we're very
Appreciate that.
close. They just couldn't quite get there before the map was going to expire. So that's the request for the extension.
Okay, so it sounds like they already are constructing?
They already
Okay.
are under construction.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. I have no questions either, so we'll open the public hearing on item 8C. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on item 8C? I see none.
Chair, I did not receive any cards and I don't see any hands raised in Zoom.
And I don't see any in the room, so we will close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Is there any further question or comment? If not, this will be Resolution 2022-33, recommending the City Council to approve a 2-year time extension to the East 10th Street tentative subdivision map.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Was moved by Commissioner Hutchinson. I think we'll give this one to Commissioner Johnson. And the second, it was a kind of a tie, but
Thank you, Chair Lyons. Roll call.
yes, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Chair Lyons.
Yes. All right, that brings us to item 8D, Village 1 Specific Plan Amendment, south of McBean Park Drive revisions. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mel Pavlinas, Planning Manager. Before you is a proposed development application by Lakeview Development LLC for the proposed Village One Specific Plan Amendment. Before I move forward with my presentation, it's a brief summary of what's been provided to your commission already. I want to acknowledge a few things and a couple of housekeeping. With me in this project is Adrian Graham of Adrian Graham and Associates. She is a consultant for DKS and Associates, who's essentially helping me out in process the application. We also have on staff, Lindy Childers also online to help out any questions from your commission or the public. The applicants are here as well, and there are property owners involved in this plan. And I want to acknowledge that to date, no public comments have been received, so I want to point that out. So Adrian and I will cover tag team on this presentation together. Thank you. So just a brief summary of the proposed project. As I mentioned, Lake Development LLC is the applicant on this project, along with property owners under the LLC. The Village One amendment consists of, in particular, a realignment of Oak Tree Lane and revisions to the land use map. Revisions to select standards in the general development plan for the village plan area, including modified yard setbacks and modified minimum lot sizes. There are other revisions that are being proposed, including updated roadway cross sections, elimination of option for reclaimed water, and phasing plan modification. I do want to note, however, that the changes that are being proposed with this amendment only affects the property south of McBean Parkway or State Highway 193. Overall plan, USGS map shown here. Sorry. Which one? Yeah, pointer, a pointer. A pointer. All right, we're back on. So the red area right there is the existing Village 1 plan area on the northeast corner of the city of Lincoln. State Highway 193 goes east to west. It bisects the plan area into two. Highway 65 is on the west side of the plan area. Zooming in, the plan area is in yellow hash marked lines here. This exhibit is important to show the location of the property, the plan area, which is essentially started by existing uses, including Toll Bridges plan area, Sun City. Major roads in the area, of course, Ferrari Ranch Road. You have Oak Tree Lane, which connects along McBean Parkway or State Highway 193. And that goes to the south of the plan area. You have, of course, State Highway 193 and Sierra College Boulevard on the east side, outside the city limits. As you know, if you're familiar with the site, there are development happening in the area. Esplanade is on the northwest side of the plan area. You have Turkey Creek development on across to the north. Waterfront mixed-use development was approved about a month ago by your commission. That's at the southeast corner of State Highway 193 and Oak Tree Lane. Hidden Hills is an approved tentative map from 2017. There's plans that are ongoing for review by city staff, but it is an approved tentative map. Zooming in further, this is the adopted plan area for Village 1. It was adopted back in 2012, along with the GDP for the plan. The plan consists of 5,639 dwelling units, with about 170,000 square feet of commercial, about 100 acres of parkland, about 350 acres of oak woodlands, open space, and trails. There are 2 sites for school that have been approved in the adopted plan. Along with the adoption of this plan, there's a certified EAR that accompanies evaluating the potential environmental impacts of the project. The proposed project is this. So given the overall area of the Village 1, the part, as I mentioned earlier, that would be subject to changes is this portion right here. So it's the color is more shown as opposed to the area that's turned off. So this is the area that will be affected by this change. Again, for orientation's sake, Ferrari Ranch Road is on the west side, Oak Tree Lane, State Highway 193, and Sierra Boulevard as shown on the map here. One of the main components of this change is to eliminate, to realign Oak Tree Lane. In particular, it will eliminate the southeasterly connection to Sierra College Boulevard as opposed to before. If you can tell, this road, Oak Tree Lane, goes from intersection with State Highway 193. It goes southeasterly. So now it's gonna, Oak Tree Lane will then loop back onto 193. So that's the big change in this plan area as proposed. As a result, in part with the circulation change, there's also some land use changes that took place. This table shows kind of the delta of what took place with regards to while retaining the same land use designations, there is differences that took place with regards between the adopted plan and the proposed plan. In particular, the residential and mixed-use development designations lost about 10.8 acres in area. You have open space trails that gained 28.1 acres. Parks and recreation areas also gained by about 0.1 acre. And you have roadways and that lost 5.6 acres in area. And landscape corridors also lost about 11.8 acres. One thing to highlight is that the density, the dwelling units did go down from 5639 to 5610 dwelling units. So it's about 29 dwelling units lesser than the original adopted plan as far as dwelling units. Other changes, as I mentioned earlier in the summary, are the GDP. GDP is essentially the zoning regulation for the Village One plan. Some exhibits in the GDP as a result of the land use changes that's identified, that I specified earlier, would need to be changed to match the approved change, the changes being proposed. In particular, the village low density residential, the VLDR zoning, adjacent to the county lands would have a setback increase. That's a rear yard setback, by the way, to 20 feet. And the minimum lot size for the properties that has that designation would go from 4,500 square feet to about 7,000 square feet. There are other changes that's being proposed, including parkland credits being updated, text and format changes to the actual plan would obviously be changed. Table headings and corrections are being done. Phasing plans being updated as well, and as well as updated roadway cross sections. And those are all identified, included in your documentation. I'm going to hand it off to Adrienne to take the rest of the slides. And if we have more questions later on, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Good evening. My name is Adrienne Graham, and I'm a consulting planner. As Mel stated earlier, in 2012, when the specific plan was adopted, there was an environmental impact report that was certified. Under CEQA, anytime that there's a proposed change to an adopted project that had an EIR, the lead jurisdiction has to take a look at that change and determine whether or not there are any environmental effects that were identified in the EIR that might be more severe, or if there might be new substantial impacts, that sort of thing, and determine it, therefore, if there's additional CEQA analysis that's necessary. So staff did take a look at the proposed changes and concluded that the only issue area in which you might have more severe impacts would be with respect to traffic noise. So I'll talk a little bit more detail about that in a moment. All of the other impacts that were identified in the 2012 EIR were still applicable, would not be more severe with these proposed changes that Mel described. So therefore, we prepared because we did have a change in the severity of the traffic noise impacts, we prepared a draft supplement to the Village One EIR. That draft supplement was circulated for 45 days to the public as similar to a regular EIR. And we did receive 3 comment letters in response to that. One was from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. That letter contains summaries of programs that would be applicable to the project, permit requirements, that sort of thing. It was a pretty standard letter for the Water Board. There was also a Lincoln resident who expressed some concerns about the specific plan in general, and also more specific concerns about things like the Titan missile-based groundwater plume, excuse me, wildlife impacts, changes in aesthetics, light and glare, buffers with the Sun City area. And then finally, Mr. Lyons observed that the PDF that we had uploaded to the city website had a redundant page in it, so we deleted that. A final supplemental EIR was prepared, and that includes responses to all of those comments that we received, as well as revisions to the mitigation monitoring program that were necessary as a result of the traffic impact, noise impact. So with respect to traffic noise, in 2012, there was the 2012 EIR identified an impact on a segment of Sierra College Boulevard where traffic volumes would increase enough that existing residents would be exposed to traffic noise increases that exceeded the identified thresholds. And that impact was found to be significant and unavoidable because that particular segment was located in the town of Loomis and Placer County. So even though there is mitigation for that, the city could not compel those jurisdictions to implement the mitigation, could only recommend that they do so. The mitigation was to use noise reducing asphalt or other surface materials on the road when the roads widened, and that would be enough to counteract the effect of the increase in traffic noise. When we did the supplement, as Mel explained, instead of going down to the southeast, Oak Tree Lane would now loop back up to 193. As a result of that, you have more traffic on the segment of 193 that would be between that second Oak Tree Lane intersection and Sierra College Boulevard. People who want to get to Sierra College Boulevard or coming off of Sierra College Boulevard would go that way rather than before they would have been able to come up through the southern portion of the site. And so then similarly, the segment of Sierra College Boulevard south of 193 also experienced more traffic. So when we did the noise analysis, we found that those two segments would see traffic noise increases that would exceed the thresholds. And there are existing residents up there, so we have to be concerned with that. Mitigation for those two segments is the same as it would be for the segment down south of 12 Bridges Drive, and that is the noise reducing asphalt or similar materials. But similar to that original conclusion, these two segments are in Placer County. 193 is under the jurisdiction of Caltrans. So the city of Lincoln cannot compel them to implement the mitigation. In addition, the other jurisdiction that's involved is South Placer Regional Transportation Agency. So the city can recommend to them that when the roads are widened, which is a planned, those are planned improvements, that they use this buffering sort of material. So we had to conclude, excuse me, that we've made a significant unavoidable impact more severe. But in conclusion, that increased severity, now that that's been addressed in the draft supplement, means that when you take into consideration the 2012 EIR as supplemented, that the EIR will adequately address the impacts of the project of this amendment to the specific plan, or I should say the specific plan as amended. We also looked at whether or not the amendment would be consistent with the goals and policies of the Village One specific plan and the general plan, and concluded that in fact, the proposed amendment would be consistent with those planning documents. So this evening, we're recommending that the commission open a public hearing, excuse me, and at the close of hearing that you approve the 3 resolutions that are provided to you. One is to certify the EIR, 2012 EIR as supplemented, adequately addresses the impacts of the project, but also to revise the mitigation monitoring program to include the addition of the noise reducing asphalt on the 2 segments that are affected, and also similarly revising the findings. And then to approve the proposed amendment to the Village One specific plan and the proposed revisions to the general development plan. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I know the applicant is also here if you have questions for him.
Start on this end. Commissioner Johnson, do you have any questions?
Not at this moment, but I probably will.
Okay, Commissioner Cross? No question. Commissioner McKinney?
Yeah, I do have a question. So this relates to the realignment of Oak Tree Lane. You know, as I look at the plan, I see some pluses and minuses to that. And I'm curious from a planning perspective, a planner's view of this, as well as traffic circulation, is the realignment, do you see that as a better alternative to what it is currently extending through to Sierra College? I kind of see it both ways. On the one hand, you know, you've got residents that if they want to get to Sierra College under this new alignment are going to have to travel, like you said, which caused that additional mitigation measure to be added. We'll have to travel further to get to Sierra College. But what it does prevent is people cutting through Sierra College and using that to get into Lincoln. So I see it both ways. And so from a planner's viewpoint and traffic viewpoint, is this a better alternative for the city? Or is it just different?
I was going to say exactly. I think it's neutral for the most part. If you do, as you said, it does mean that you won't have cut-through traffic, which is good for particularly for the neighborhoods in the southeast portion of the project site. And, you know, given that you would now be going up to 193, which is going to be a 4-lane road and, you know, is a pretty straight shot to Sierra College Boulevard versus kind of winding through the whole project area down to the southeast corner. I don't know. You also, so I think that's sort of a wash. And then the land use configurations and the way that the village is designed with the core higher densities and mixed use at the Ferrari Ranch 193 intersection with then low density farther out and then a lot of the estate and open space development occurring on the edges. That doesn't change. That kind of overall concept, which is what directed, I think, land use planning on this site, doesn't really change. So the big, and for environmentally, we're actually going to have more open space with this plan, which is a little bit better. The only effects environmentally, as I said, were that because just on those two legs, you're going to have more traffic, you'll have more traffic noise. But overall, I think it's pretty neutral from a land use perspective.
So maybe the applicant at some point might want to speak to why this change? Why are they proposing this? Driving it?
I'll ask him to come up. Hutchinson. Commissioner Gilbert. Okay, I would be interested in hearing from the applicant. Can you address the question of why this change?
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Tony Frazier with Frazier Design Group. We're here representing really not developer, just as we call it, collective landowners. It's probably a good idea to maybe give the brief history. I don't know if I'm on time, hopefully not, because I'm representing like a lot of people. Anyway, when we went to annex the specific plan, Village 1, the Allen property, which basically where the Oak Tree Lane has to cut through, objected to that. So the city could not annex the entire village. And that's what triggered this amendment. So it wasn't driven by landowner. Actually, I would use the term hostage. The landowner's been taken hostage since 2016 to get this done. Sadly, we submitted the application to go back, because it was required to modify it since the city would not condemn property. The Allen and Ewing family didn't want to go through and allow the road. They don't want to be part of the annexation. They want to stay out of it. So we had no choice but to come back with an amendment. Unfortunately, the city manager changed a few times and staff. So we've been in Lumba for, maybe 5 years doing this. And finally, thanks to Mel, I should have started thanking him and Adrian and the rest of the staff and Sean for really putting this back in motion, and so we can be here in front of you. So again, if we had a choice, would have rather been annexed. The landowner hears that they couldn't do anything with their property. Sadly, the economy, as you can see what happened, they could have been part of the other wave, which is a few years ago. So due to that delay, now we're dealing with another downturn economy. So we're here asking the commissioner to grant us this approval so we can maybe see the light for them. And we have here the Level family, we have Clift, we have also Lake Development, Matsto. They are taking the burden to move it forward. But again, this was required because we couldn't annex the other property. And if you look at the history too, even further, when I was younger, and I'm nervous today because my wife and my kid is here. So it's not on Zoom, it's here for the first time in my career. So you can see that even the sphere of influence was all the way towards Sierra College when the city general plan started. And that shifted further to the west. So that amended as well, when we were moving forward with Village 1, because a lot of people to the east didn't want to be part of it. Unfortunately, the Allen family, Newman family, they were kept because of that corridor, which again, we worked on this specific plan before the amendment, also for several years, and we went through the whole motion. We didn't know that we're going to be stopped through the annexation. So that's why we're here. Fortunately, it is a good plan in relation to wetlands, open space, connectivity. And I know you had a concern about which plan is better. Honestly, put the planner hat, engineer hat, being neutral. This plan is better for the community in general that within the village because you don't have a lot of the heavy traffic, especially when the city worked a long time ago to develop this connectivity for NEVs and carts. And, so to be able to do that, you want the heavy traffic to stay on the 4-lane, 6-lane roads, which Sierra College, 193. Bringing more traffic internal to the village, we kind of contradict a little bit that policy to keep those streets with lower velocities. Knowing Oak Tree Lane is only 2-lane road, having more traffic on it, you'll have nothing but more complaints because most of your intersections are not signalized, are stop signs. We have the whole corridor between one side to the other, we have one signal, and that's only needed if the school went there because the school has the option to go anywhere they want. So if they go to that corner, then we have a signal. Otherwise, the rest are stop signs. So in reality, you have less complaint coming forward from people saying, there's more traffic, I need more signal, I need this and that. So from planning perspective, engineering, this is more attractive in my opinion. It's like thinking about when you want to develop downtown and make it better, you don't want to have the traffic, all the heavy trucks and going through downtown. This is more neighborhood with the commercial in the center or toward 193. We're bringing the people in front of that mixed use commercial area, which is really good. We're not taking it away. So again, as Adrian mentioned, it's only a small segment really. It depends how you look at threshold. But if somebody looked at the plan, besides that one segment, this is more superior for wetland. We're avoiding a lot more wetlands. Where the road was going, especially with the PCCPs, they marked it as no touch zone. So there's those conflict that we're working with the PCCP. This has helped us to get closer as well. So it touched on a lot of things, not just traffic. Hopefully I answered that question. Okay. But again, I want to really thank you for taking the time to consider this because, again, this has been a long journey. A lot of people being taken hostage to this specific plan. So hopefully with getting this done tonight, we can go to City Council and get it done. And really, everything that we did is a cleanup. We took what Elliott did. They already did an amendment, small amendment, so we started with that. As Mel mentioned, draw water. Also, this amendment is mostly for the south, but we picked up what the city already canceled a few things in the village. We tried to incorporate it so we don't have to go back again and again. But the biggest thing that, you know, a lot of people that moving forward in the village right now are really waiting for this amendment because we have to update the finance plan. That's been also, you know, we had interim finance plan for Village One, even though it's not being, you know, discussed today, but that's what's going to have to come next is amending to reflect what's happening here. To do that, to help the people already paying and moving forward to construction, we have to get this done so we can amend the plan to match this amendment. So it's like domino effect, but we have to get this off the track. So, but if you have any other questions specific, I'll go sit down and waiting for more questions. I appreciate your vote yes tonight, hopefully.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad he mentioned about the traffic, increased traffic going through there would make a situation very much like we have right now with Ferrari Ranch and Joyner Parkway, where people to zoom through on Groveland to avoid one signal, and it's not what was intended. And I think this avoids that problem here, which I think is a very good thing. So, any further questions before I open the public hearing? Seeing none, we will open the public hearing on item 8G. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak? I see one hand. Yes, sir, come forward. State your name and you'll have 3 minutes on the clock.
Great. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tom Brudding. I'm a resident of Sun City. And recently, the city very graciously gave us an update on Village One. Over 300 residents attended that meeting. Many did not know that it was moving forward. Many were very grateful to learn what was happening. But we also have a lot of concerns as to what has happened in the past, but more so what's happening now. I'm an architect. I'm a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. I've read a lot of EIRs over many, many years. I've developed for over 40 years, and I have some grave concerns about what I read in a supplemental EIR. Not only do I think it's inefficient and insufficient, but there are things within there that I think need to be questioned very carefully. As an example, the loss of wetlands has been moved around quite a bit in the plan. In some cases, it states, quote, impacts would remain significant even after mitigation, including generation of air pollutants, loss of biological resources, generation of greenhouse gases, traffic noise, traffic congestion, cumulative demand of water and wastewater requiring treatment, and damage to or destruction of historic or prehistoric resources. I think that there are mitigation measures put within the plan, but they're not really carefully described or followed through to a point that we believe that, as it says here, in some cases, the impacts will remain significant. What I'm asking you as commissioners to look at this very carefully, not push it through, not rubber stamp. We know this has been around a really long time. I'm definitely pro-development. I want to see the development move forward, but I want it done properly. And at this point, not only I, but a good number of people within Sun City are very concerned about it, because nothing within the report, either the previous one from 2012 or the supplemental, addresses any impact on Sun City. And we do think that that needs to be considered. So I ask you to very carefully look forward to what you're going to do tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands in the room? Yes, sir.
My name is Mike Hudak, and I recently moved here, and I'm proud to live in the city, and you guys do a great job. I want to state that. I do live right behind 193 to the south in Sun City on Overland Drive, and at periods of time, we have some traffic noise, and the mayor does a city meeting with us once a month and was kind enough to address that. And there was some discussion of the noise mitigation and the traffic on 193 moving to McBean Parkway and Ferrari Ranch Road. And you may or not be able to answer this tonight, but I was just curious at Oak Tree and at Ferrari Ranch, is there intentions to possibly put traffic lights on those main roads to slow the traffic down that's coming from the east on 193? And I don't know if you'll be able to answer that right now, but just curious of what type of mitigation you might be looking at, to slow that traffic down at peak times.
Thank you. I forgot to ask the secretary, were there any cards on this?
No.
Okay, thank you. eh, I'll hang on to you, Tony. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Any questions or comments online?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. Yes, sir, in the back corner.
Hello, my name is James Evan Pilato. I don't know which of these plans is better because I don't know how bad that traffic is going to be. But 5,600 new houses and you're shuttling all of that traffic along one road. To me, the saving grace before was that there was an extension that went up to Sierra College, because when you try to pull out onto 193, it's already bad at peak times. I can't imagine how difficult it's going to be if you're on one of these side roads. And so I don't know exactly what's going to be better for us in the neighborhood, but I do want to point out a couple of things that I noticed people saying. First, the lady here pointed out that there's literally nothing we can do about it, and even if we could, it's not in our jurisdiction. Mr. Frazier points out that this is going to be much better for people in the community. Okay, well, what about the rest of the people? They were never mentioned. So when you think about that, think about 5,600 homes of cars on 193. And if you've ever driven on 193, you'll know how bad it can get. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other hands in the room? Mr. Frazier, would you like to address? This time you will have a time limit because it's in the public hearing.
I don't know which one you want me to address first, but as far as the widening on Ferrari Ranch Road and signals and 193, that's already in the plan. There is time limit in relation to how many building permits will be done. It's in the PFE program, impact fees of the city. So I believe right now Ferrari Ranch Road, the plan to be widened to 4-lane with signals on those intersections within 1,000 building permits. So it's not too far in the future. So there's so many building permits you can go through. Similarly, on 193, obviously with Stella Morrison project, we have to put a signal on Oak Tree Lane and widen that portion to Ultimate. And then as you saw, Elliott already did start it on their side. And the plan is that as so many units are being pulled, it's going to trigger the completion of 193 to be 4-lane. And ultimately, the PFE program takes it to Sierra College. So that 193, as you see it today, very soon is going to be more 4-lane road with NEV on both sides and a big portion of it. And Ferrari Ranch Road will be 4-lane. And luckily, you know, when we worked with Del Webb on the project that was mentioned, Sun City, we worked on making sure the bridge is 4-lane, so we don't end up today having to widen the bridge. So we don't have to do anything on the bridge, just from the bridge north and restripe the bridge. As far as the traffic, I know that the village as a whole, like every other villages, we are paying impact fees towards Sierra College. I mean, the traffic mitigation that goes to the county is part of Sparta. So to say that we're not doing anything, we are, because there's a lot of thousands of dollars being paid to improve all of this roadway. It just physically, the village not going to construct it, but they're collecting per every building permit, you're collecting the traffic fee that goes to Sparta outside of the city impact fees. So that's an addition. As far, I mean, I think Adrian and Mal consider and discuss the AR and everything. Again, what we have today is we already have specific plans approved. We are trying to adjust to what the city wants us to avoid going through properties that doesn't want to be part of it, and the city doesn't condemn. So we don't have a choice to go to the Sierra College entrance. As far as connection to Lincoln Hills, I worked on Lincoln Hill project, as everybody knows that. Actually, the plan was for Lincoln Hills to extend to this property, and the level, you know, they are here. They made deals with them that didn't go far, but the plan was for Sun City to become all the way to Sierra College. So a lot of folks that they buy in projects, they don't understand the history, they don't understand that, you know, we have to build what the city planned. We're not doing something different. We're implementing the general plan that's set forth in the city for many, many years when I was much younger. So we're doing what the city wants, and we thought we're done. We're back to do what city wants, and hopefully we can get that done tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other hands raised online?
There are no hands raised in Zoom.
Any more in the room? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. I would like to remind the public and the commission that the matters before us are confined to the supplemental EIR, which is confined to the changes of the traffic. And that's the only thing that was noted in the supplemental EIR as an increased impact. Yes, that's the word, blanked out. And the realignment of the map and so forth. So those are the things that will be voting on. Is there any further questions from the commission at this point? Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Yeah, I have, I guess, three topics of interest I just wanted to learn a little bit more about real quick. In the staff report on page, what page is this? 5, on the top paragraph up there, kind of related to the school property. It says in here, ultimately, the Western Placer Unified School District would decide whether to construct a school on the site. I know Mr. Frazier was explaining where that is kind of on the U currently. If Western Placer elects not to develop a school at this location, then the proposed revisions to the specific plan allow up to 177 village medium density residential units to be developed on the 12.1 acre parcel. In this case, there could also be adjustments to the adjacent park site. So I guess I want to just focus on that last, comma, and then there could also be adjustments to the adjacent park site. I know that it's in the little table that we were seeing, there's really, I think parks increased a tiny bit with the proposal, but I guess this part just kind of concerns me a little bit because I'm an advocate for more parks. We need more park space. So I'm just curious, if a condition can be put in place or something that would protect that actual park site in the case that, the school district decides not to go in there. If, because when it says could also be adjustments to the adjacent park site, that could increase the park site or it could also decrease. So.
Yeah, does staff respond to that as to what kind of adjustments are being referred to there?
So that school site and that park are sort of a joint concept. And so I think the part of the adjustment would be that if the school district decided that they'd rather have the school elsewhere, then the city would need to look to see, well, can we also put the park still next to the school? And if not, then if there's going to be an adjustment to the specific plan that reduces the amount of park acreage, then that would be a change to the plan that would have to be addressed. But I think you may not want to condition the project specific to that park because you might want that park to move if the school site moves.
Okay. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, let's say we're moving along building and other areas are being developed in there, but then the school, so that's being held and the school says, now we're not going to build a school anymore. But all the other spaces already kind of maxed out. So there's not enough room for a park. What happens with that? That's my concern.
Yeah, I don't. So.
But it says in here, it could change.
In order for that to change, there would have to be rezoning, so it would have to come back to
Yeah.
us.
Right, that's what I was
Okay.
trying to say. So if you were to change those things, so if the school decided to put a school somewhere else, they can do that under the existing zoning. They can build in a residential zone. So that doesn't necessarily come back. But if there's a concomitant change in the parkland, that's a change in land use and zoning, that would have to come back.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is if the school district decides not to use that piece of land, this would have to come back to the planning commission?
If the park were to change as a result of that. So the
either-
school site doesn't need to come back necessarily.
Mhm.
If it's the parkland. And I think probably, and maybe Tony could clarify this too, but I think that One possibility, another possibility is that if the park were to stay there, perhaps it would get reconfigured some if it weren't being considered something next to a school.
Right. I'm in favor of protecting as much park as we can. So I guess my concern is, what does that look like? You know, would 30% of it go away? You know, I understand it could be reconfigured, but if there's any change in acreage, does that have to come back?
Yes.
It all has to come back to the planning commission.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that. Mhm. Yeah, okay. The next one is on other changes listed in here. There's a little bullet point that says the option to use reclaimed water has been eliminated. I was just wondering if anybody can elaborate on that one.
Mr. Frazee raised his hand. He's the applicant, so the applicant or the staff may speak.
So the decision before this amendment was to eliminate the raw water. As the Taylor Morrison project was moving forward, the ability to put the lake and use raw water and so forth was decided by staff that it wasn't feasible to continue moving forward. So by eliminating that, they eliminated basically the raw water on the north side. That's where the plan was bringing raw water from. So this really amendment, we just included it because the specific plan mentions the possibility of use raw water. I want to remind everybody that the actual design and all the study was done assuming domestic water for everything, but the raw water was an option. As this north was developed, that option went away. So we are taking it out instead of just leaving it there hanging and it's not being developed. We are looking for other things for the lake for another source of raw water, but that's a separate issue. But again, it wasn't something that the team here decided on. It was decided by staff to be removed. Since it was removed, we cleaned it up in this amendment.
Okay.
Are you clarifying on this one?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's okay.
follow up?
Yeah, the removal was reclaimed water, and you talked about raw water. So reclaimed water is what's coming as reuse from the wastewater treatment plant, which is very far away.
There were two things. You're right on that as well. So the reclaimed water was decided years ago that wasn't coming east of Lincoln Crossing. So that's went away. Initially, we were trying to put also reclaimed water in this village. And we left the option of using raw water, but it depends on many different things, which is one of them is getting a lake done right at the end of the golf course before McBean, east of Oak Tree Lane. That was the specific plan showing where the lake's going to be, the intake, and out of that we'll distribute the raw water. Actually, even a segment of that raw water was installed by Elliott in front of their project. So there's a pipe for raw water already installed because that was moving forward. And now, it's been eliminated. It wasn't, we don't make the final decision. Staff made the decision because it wasn't feasible. So that went away.
Adrian, do you want to?
Yeah, so if I could just clarify too, that I think we made an error by saying reclaimed, we meant raw. When the project was analyzed in 2012, the EIR stated that it wouldn't use reclaimed, but it might use raw. So that particular change should have said raw water.
Okay, that clears that up. Thank you.
And that's on page 5 of the staff report.
Okay, so that's the bullet point down there,
So I
under
apologize for
changes.
that. Mhm.
Okay,
I think it's in the CEQA document too, where there's some other references to reclaim water.
Yeah, and it had no material effect on any of the analysis, but it was an error. It's there too.
okay.
Answer your question?
Yeah, yes, thanks.
You have another one or? is that-
One more.
Okay.
My third. So just around traffic, just trying to understand a little bit more about 193 in Sierra College. So what I'm hearing is 193 is real Caltrans jurisdiction, and then Sierra College is South Placer, and we're paying fees into there. I guess my question is, we all know how horrible Highway 65 is, the jam on there. All of us in the area pay fees to widen that and get all that cleaned up and fixed. I guess is the same thing going to happen with 193 with Caltrans? I guess at the helm of that project, is it going to run into the same situation? Yeah, Mr. Frazier is saying no. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because I think that might be a concern that, you know, I do as a daily commuter through Highway 65 mess. I wish that would get cleaned up sooner than later, that we're all paying into. So I just want to learn a little bit more just to see, you know, how that works. Because I know you mentioned, you know, after 1,000 permits or so, it trigger that. But if it's in Caltrans jurisdiction, I guess what holds them accountable to do that? Likewise on Sierra College Boulevard, I know that's a county issue. I guess I'm curious just to learn a little bit more about what triggers that too. If we don't really have a poll or a way to prod them to do that, just what that looks like. Yeah, Mr. Frazier, please.
I'll give the option to the staff first before Mr. Frazier. Does the staff have an answer, or would you like to
Well,
defer to Mr. Frazier?
Well, no, one thing I would point out is that we did do a traffic analysis. It's in the appendix to the draft supplemental EIR, and I'm just taking a quick look here. And Sierra, SR 193 west of Sierra College Boulevard, so that's the portion we're interested in. When it becomes a 4-lane facility, will operate at an acceptable level of service. The intersection that was discussed in here as well of 193 and Sierra College Boulevard will also become, when they widen it and they do the left turns the way they're recommended, that will also operate at an acceptable service level, you know, policy with respect to policies. Another thing to note is that compared to the 2012 analysis, traffic's actually improved. Partly because we're reducing the number of units here and also have more higher density units, but also because the Taylor Morrison project is age restricted. And so the number of trips that are associated with that is less than what would have happened if it was conventional. So we are seeing overall, in general, that traffic impacts for the amended specific plan are very similar to or even improved compared to the 2012 project, except for that segment, you know, those two segments that I talked about with for noise. But even those, I'm looking Sierra College Boulevard, south of 193 still operates within the service level standards.
Okay, no, I appreciate that explanation and fully understand once it's widened, it services it. I guess my key thing is when will that happen?
And I think if
what compels it to actually happen?
So if Lindy is available to respond to that, because the city does participate with Sparta, and I think if she's there, she would have a better handle on all those intricacies.
Go ahead, Lindy.
Hi. SP, I believe SP Man is also on the call on Zoom, and so he can provide more details about the timing of those improvements. But I would like it to go ahead and have SP respond.
Thank you, Lindy. Thank you, Councilor. So yeah, we work with South Placer Regional Transportation Agency that programs regional roads. So that segment of Highway 6, Sierra College, is programmed into the current amendment that they're working into. So we have money, they have programmed funds for that segment to be widened to 4-lane. I know Bickford Ranch is already widening some of segments. So, you know, as for the timing, I think it depends on when they have adequate funding lined up, because there are so many different pots of money that go into financing these regional roadways. At this point, we don't know when, but I think it is being considered right now in the latest amendment that we're working, that Sparta is working into. So that's that. And then also that segment east of the city limits on 193, I believe city is trying to annex that. I'm not up to date on the annexation status, but I believe that at some point it's going to be city-owned road, And then we do have that segment widened, funded through our PFE, as Tony had mentioned. So as and when we have enough funds, that would trigger that widening on that segment. So.
Okay. So it sounds like we're pretty confident that this will happen. I know there's a track record of it not happening, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we have the funding lined up. We have they are in the right programs, because the PFE would not go fund projects outside the city limits. So, so the regional, because Sierra College carries a lot of county traffic as well, North County and Loomis as well. And Loomis is not a participant, but we do have funding. Sparta does have funding, and we'll make sure that they do have funding. And one of the things that we have these mitigations that we're requiring use of rubberized asphalt to lower the noise. So we will make sure that we'll have that conveyed over to Sparta, and make sure that they add that component to the roadway segment.
Okay.
That,
Yeah.
you want to hear more from Tony, or is it?
Only if he has something else to add, but.
I think they did a good job. Just clarification. Right now, Sierra College is outside. 193 up to Stardust is in city limits. So Caltrans doesn't own that. So that's been already gotten by the city. So really that's becoming McBean Road. We still say 193 because historically that's 193. So that's city control. And right now, all of that is programmed for widening based on, as I said, units and the city collecting fee. And actually city council started with Village One Summit News that we did to make sure there's money for these things that we said we cannot just pay and the money goes somewhere else and now you don't have money to build it. So the unit count basically coincide with what you need to build. And it was approved by council resolution that certain money of those units will be collected by city. So when we go trigger building, we're not now saying there's no funds for it. So the city following those resolutions, we should have money being collected from Taylor Morrison, Elliott to build Ferrari, which is first, and then the rest. In addition, there are allocation money in the PFE for the connection all the way to Sierra College. And as you know, like when we did Nelson widening, it wasn't city, but you were able to do it to benefit your program. It was in your program. So this will not be any different for a city to do.
Okay, thank you. That's all, yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Cross, any questions, comments? Anybody on this side? Seeing none. And by the way, thank you for the question about the reclaimed water, because I was going to ask that same question. Yes, Commissioner Gilbert. Can you turn your mic on and bring it up to you?
Sure. As I'd like to clarify something, one of the participants on a Zoom call indicated that this would cause us to have a problem with water. And, we do have a water issue in California. The water issue in California is driven by the 2/3 of the population that lives in the south end of our state. They use 2/3 of the water. Fortunately for us, we have access to 2/3 of the water. And over the years, at the state level, they constantly talk about that because they need water for their development. And the fact remains that the water agency, our primary water agency, PCWA, Placer County Water Agency, that supplies us currently with about 85% of our water, has stated in meetings, and one that I was in last week, that we have 2 years of water in reserve. That doesn't mean somebody can't come in and try and steal it from the south or pass a law to steal it from us. But the fact remains that over the years, even during the really rough times, we've had adequate water. Our challenge in Lincoln has always been building the infrastructure to get the water where the development's going to be. And of course, that will be addressed in this plan. So I want the record to show that right now, for the foreseeable future, we don't have a water issue that should affect our building and construction, which is extremely important to our community because we intend to grow by many, many, many thousands of residents. And, you know, you can't live without water. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Okay, that'll bring us to our resolutions. We have three. Our first is Resolution 2022-34, recommending the City Council certify the 2012 Village One Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report as revised by the supplement to the EIR adequately addresses the environmental impacts of the Village One Specific Plan with the proposed amendments and revise the findings of fact and the mitigation monitoring program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hutchison,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Chair Lyons.
Yes. Resolution 2022-35, recommending the City Council approve the Village One Specific Plan Amendment. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Lyons.
Yes. Resolution 22-36, recommending the City Council approve revisions to the General Development Plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Chair Lyons.
Yes. So that brings us to the end of item 8D. Thank you very much. So that brings us to item 9, general business. Do we have any general business tonight? Looks like we do not. Sorry, it says we do not on my sheet. I just read it wrong. Item 10, commissioner comments. Do any of my colleagues have any comments?
Yes. I'd like to thank our city attorney and city staff. I made a comment last week that we had a bad wall at a park next to my house, and they repaired it today. And they repaired it 100%. They did a very good job. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments?
I do, real quick. I noticed that when you download files, the naming convention has changed so that they match the agenda item and the attachments. That is very helpful. And so, thank you very much. I really appreciate that organization of those files for me.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have just one thought that I wanted to share, reflecting on our meeting from August. I realized too late that we actually could have had another option rather than saying yes or no at that point. And that is, we could have deferred it and encouraged the applicant and the community to talk to each other. And I, in hindsight, wish we had done that. That might have avoided a little bit of the angst that has gone on since then. And I just wanted to share that with the rest of the commission to keep in mind, our only options are not just yes and no. It's wait, go talk, and come back. And sometimes that's a prudent thing to do. So I don't regret the decision itself, just the way we went about it. That's all. So I think that's the end of commissioner comments. Any informational items from the staff?
I would just note that December's planning commission meeting is canceled, and we'll see you in January 2023.
It is. Well, this may be my
Yeah.
farewell then, because I don't know if I'm going to be,
And for those of you that have applied to be reinstated, if your term is coming to a conclusion, you should be hearing from our city clerk, Gwen Scanlon, shortly. We're going to be scheduling some interview dates early December.
well, if I don't have if I'm not renewed, I'll come back and be on that side and say goodbye. All right. Is that it from the staff? I think so. All right. That brings us to adjournment. We are adjourned.